Welcome to Solosaurus, a podcast about one-player board and card games. My name is Brandon Waite.
My name is Carter Mackey.
And this is episode 11, where we're going to talk about the 2017 Spiel Des Jahres winner, Kingdomino, which has gotten a ton of attention and popularity since it was released and won the big award, as games that win the Spiel des Jahres often do. And it's the kind of game that we haven't really covered on this show so far. It's a small box game, casual, family-style game, and we haven't done a solo variant in a while. So all of those are reasons we're going to cover that on the show, because this game is soloable, because a man named Alexander Saranak created a variant for it. So we'll get to that review in just a bit, but first, the news. Our first bit of news for today is that Sébastien Dujardin from Pearl Games has announced Sun Moon, which is a game with art done by the very popular Vincent Dutrait. It's a game for 1 to 4 players, and what makes this game stand out is the first game from this designer since he created Deus, which was a very popular game when it came out in 2014. Critics really enjoyed Deus, and so this is a big deal. The idea of the game, as I understand it, is it's about delivering goods on a planet where the top half of the planet is bathed in sunlight forever, and the bottom is forever shrouded in darkness. And how that affects, delivering goods from one place to another is totally left to our imagination, I guess. But a lot of people seem to be very excited about it. And I'm also interested in it because it's a strategy game for 1 to 4 players that plays in 30 to 45 minutes, which is intriguing to me. The second bit of news is a small one, but Cosmos has announced that The Legend of Andor is getting another expansion called Lost Legends sometime in late 2018. It's going to include 3 new scenarios, and that's about all we know about it so far. And the Lost Legends title is a translation from the German, so it may have a different title when it comes out in English, but keep an eye out for that one. The third bit of news for us today is that Gorus Maximus is on Kickstarter. This is a game from Connor McGoey and Inside Up Games. It caught my attention because it has art from Kwanchai Moria, I think is how you say his name. He's the guy who did the artwork for Gaia, and his most popular one probably is Dinosaur Island. He has a very distinct, bright, vivid style that a lot of people really love right now. And if you take a look at the box art for this game, it is definitely eye-catching. It has a picture of a Roman gladiator with a sword kneeing another gladiator in the head so hard that his head explodes and eyeballs and brains are going everywhere.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's a trick-taking game. So those two things do not usually go together. The other thing you don't normally expect from trick-taking games is a solo mode. And as one of the stretch goals for the campaign, they've revealed this will have a solo mode. So if you're interested in trick-taking at all, this looks like a novel take on that, because you can actually change the Trump suit in mid-round, and it has an interesting theme. It's very gory, bloody artwork, but also very cartoony. So that seems like it hits a lot of interesting notes, and you may want to check that out. That's Gorus Maximus on Kickstarter. And finally, probably the biggest bit of news for this week is that Monolith Games, the publishers of Batman Gotham City Chronicles and Conan, these really big, giant titles, they are going to be making Claustrophobia, I think it's 1664. I'm not 100% sure what this game is about. It looks like a dungeon crawl game, but that's not really the important part of the story. The important part is this is going to be going up on Kickstarter later this year. And when it does, they've already announced that all of the copies will already be produced, or at least they'll already be wrapping up production. And so this is the first time a publisher has very blatantly said, we're using Kickstarter as a pre-order system, or we're using it as an online store. Functionally, that's happened for a while, I think, because a lot of bigger companies like CMON have the money probably to produce these games.
Right.
But Kickstarter allows them to overproduce them. But even still, those CMON games still have months of development time or time to get into the hands of backers. When you back this game, it's going to be in your hands in 6 weeks because it's already done. So this has raised a lot of questions in the board game community about what Kickstarter is actually for, because it's meant to be, or at least originally was meant to be, a way for creators who don't have means to get their ideas into the hands of consumers, or at least to get their ideas off the ground. So this is a very novel approach, and apparently they actually sat down with the folks at Kickstarter to make sure that this was okay. It was approved, and Monolith is predicting that if this is successful, and if their last few Kickstarters are any indication, it will be, because the Batman Kickstarter got like $4.5 million when it was on. This will probably become the norm for some companies, would be my guess. So, and this is an interesting trend probably for the industry.
Yeah, it's strange. So will it be as soon as you place your order, or will it be like 6 weeks out from whenever you, like when the Kickstarter, like whatever closes, supposedly?
I presume it's 6 weeks after the Kickstarter closes. Okay. I think they're planning to have a pledge manager ready to go, and they'll have probably most of the games produced at that point, because I imagine you would need a little bit of time for distribution and actually shipping it.
Right.
I think one of the benefits of this is that you don't actually have to go through an official distributor who's going to take a cut of your profits. So
right.
That's why a lot of times companies like Chip Theory Games will only sell their games directly through their online store, so they can cut out that middleman.
Right.
So I guess that's one of the benefits of going with Kickstarter. And the other that they said is that it gets them access to a larger audience, because some people just browse Kickstarter looking for projects to back.
Yeah, that's strange. I wonder, I'm not familiar with Kickstarter's like terms and service and all that type of stuff, but like aren't board games like by far the largest category as far as like earners in Kickstarter?
I don't know for sure, but it wouldn't surprise me. We've had several multi-million-dollar projects at this point.
Because I feel like a lot of the other projects that raised a lot of, I guess, money or capital or whatever you want to call it, that were in other categories, I haven't really heard of those in a long time. A lot of those, there was more of those a couple of years ago, but now not so much. Yeah, that is strange. Obviously nets Kickstarter a lot of money.
Yeah, I'm sure Kickstarter's not that sad, and probably they view this as an evolution of their platform.
Right, which is, I guess that's what I'm thinking of. That's what's kind of, I guess, what is Kickstarter's long-term goals as far as what they want to become?
I don't know, but this does throw open the door, in my mind, for maybe a future glut of companies who just want to use this as an online store in order to reach Kickstarter's big audience. And if that happens, it's possible that Kickstarter's audience would shrink, right? Because it's like going to the farmer's market and trying to tell which folks bought their produce at the local grocery store and are selling it, and who actually grew their own stuff, right?
Right.
Which projects are real passion projects that can't get funded any other way, and which are just a big company trying to sell you, and they don't want to go through a distributor. At the end of the day, this will mean more money for them, and I imagine that's what's driving the train.
Right. I just wonder what it means for game development, and then also just the normal supply chain.
That's true. This could significantly hurt some distributors if this catches on. So that's something to keep an eye on, and I thought it was an interesting development for the week, and doesn't specifically pertain to solo board games, but it is something that could affect that down the line. For now, though, it's time to get on to our review for the week, which is for Kingdomino. We already said this came out in 2017. It's from designer Bruno Catala and was published by Blue Orange Games. And out of the box, this is a game for 2 to 4 players. But because of Alexander Saranak and a couple of other folks who've also posted solo variants on BGG, you actually can go on to Board Game Geek into the files section of the Kingdomino page and download some rules for this and play it one player. And this is a very light, casual, family-style game, plays in 10, 15, 20 minutes. It's really short.
Yeah.
And we haven't really covered a game like that on the show, so we wanted to try something a little bit different. And we've heard you, because a lot of you have written in and asked us to do more solo variants, which is something from the beginning we plan to do. And to be perfectly frank with you, when we first started the podcast, I did send out messages to a number of publishers asking for review copies of different games. Didn't expect to get a reply from any of them, and got way more positive replies all at once than I expected. So that's sort of what's been driving our review schedule for a while. Now that that's starting to die down a little bit, we're going to focus a little bit more on the solo variant. So we will get to more of those. And this will be one of them. The name of this variant is the Princess Dorothy variant, if you go online. And we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to play and to rules. But first, let's start with components. Carter, what did you think about the components for this one?
I thought they were good. I mean, I think the art style is good. I mean, it works well for the theme of just kind of being a lighter game. I don't know if you call it lamination, whatever, the colored outside lamination on the cardboard dominoes it's like very crisp and clear and shiny and seems like thicker than normal. I don't know. Yeah, it's nice. And the little castles you make by combining the other cardboard pieces together to make a little standee.
Yeah, I mean, this game, I think when you've punched it all out and you've set it up, the insert for this is really great. It holds everything beautifully. So when you open the box lid, it has a very elegant sort of presentation. You know, when you're storing these little tiny castles, which, by the way, have no mechanical function whatsoever.
Right.
They're just there to be
it.
cool. You know, you can actually store your little wooden king pawns down inside of them. So it stores away neatly, and the little pawns themselves, the wooden pawns, they're pretty cute, you know, and they come in some slightly more pastel colors than most games do. I don't know. It's very cutesy,
right?
I guess.
Yeah.
And the artwork is very charming, cartoony, and it's the kind that if you pay close attention, you can see little details, you know, of things in the water or,
right,
you know, somebody in the fields or something like that.
Or Nessie under the water.
Yeah, Nessie under the water on the lake tile. I love that. And the tiles themselves, which are the heart of the game, they look like domino tiles, only instead of having numbers on two different sides, they're two different kinds of landscapes, either, you know, a grassy meadow or a wheat field or a mines or something like that. And these tiles are thick.
Very thick.
And they feel great to play with. And like you said, that glossy finish is cool. I don't think I've seen that on a tile game before, but it looks really sharp.
Yeah, yeah.
So component-wise, you know, it's not like you're getting a ton in the box, but you have to bear in mind, this is a game that costs like $13.
Yeah.
I mean, this is super cheap.
Right.
And I would say for that amount of money, the quality of the components is great.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So the component quality is excellent, and the rules for the game, if you're playing the game multiplayer, so you look at the rule book that comes with the game, I mean, we're talking like 2 pages or something, maybe 3.
Yeah, I think it's 3 pages.
But
yeah,
I mean, it's not densely worded. It's just lots of clear examples. This is the simplest gateway game I've seen in a long time. That's not to say, though, that there aren't good and meaningful decisions, but it's just very easy to get into, simple to teach. I mentor a kid at a local elementary school here, and we play board games together whenever we get together, and I brought in Kingdomino to play with him, and he's in 2nd grade, and he had absolutely no trouble playing it and really enjoyed playing it. So that's the level we're talking about here. The solo variant rules that you can get on Board Game Geek are also just 1 page, and this is a dumb thing, but often when you print off solo variant rules, they're just somebody typed up a Word document in 12-point Times New Roman, and you can print it off, right? This was formatted to mirror the design of the other rulebook and the shape of the game box. So if you cut it down to the size it's meant to be, then it fits perfectly in this tiny square box. It's just, I mean, it's nice.
Yes, it's a really nice touch to the solo variant.
Yeah, so Alexander, good on you, because you did a really great job with that. And I think the rules for the solo variant, too, are very simple.
Yeah, very simple, clear, straightforward.
There is actually a win condition for this, which is pretty neat. So the idea of the solo rules is, as you're playing, some tiles are being claimed by the AI player, and at the end of the game you need to have a score that's higher than the AI players in order to win. So it's, you know, you can look at your high score and compare it from game to game, but win conditions always make a bigger deal for me in extending the life of a solo game. And the fact that there's not much to manage as you play is wonderful too. So then you get to the actual play of the game, and the play is very simple. So at the beginning of every turn, you're going to take 4 of these tiles out of the box, and on the front side of the tile is a picture of a landscape. You know, sometimes it'll be 2 landscapes of the same type on the same tile. Sometimes it'll be 2 different ones. On the back is a sort of a wood grain look and then a number. You're going to turn these over with the number face up, and you'll put them in numerical order. And then you're going to take turns, if you're playing a multiplayer game, placing one of your pawns on one of these tiles to claim it. So you'll flip it face up before you do that, of course, so you can see what's on the other side. And you're going to use the tiles that you claim to build a 5x5 grid that is your kingdom. So it's just a variant on dominoes, only you're building a kingdom. So the trick of the game is sort of like in our role player review last week, if you pick the lower numbered tile, they tend to not be as good as a general rule. But if you pick the lower numbered one, you'll get a chance to pick first next round. So that's the sort of mechanic that this whole game turns on. In the solo game, the way that works is you don't have the tension of, okay, what's this other player going to pick? You're not sort of guessing what they're going to do. You know what the AI player is going to do.
Right.
On their turn, they're going to grab the tile with the most crowns, because at the end of the game, some tiles have these little crowns on one side of them or on one particular landscape. And as you put them down, you want to create large patches of land of the same type that have these little crowns, because you'll multiply the number of spaces of that particular terrain type with the number of crowns in that terrain. That gives you your final score. Well, the AI player is always going to take the tile with the most crowns. And so you know ahead of time what they're going to pick. And for me, I kind of like that it wasn't just roll a die and they take one of these tiles or something like that.
Oh, and also knowing that what it's going to do and kind of, that changed what tiles I took, because I could kind of strategize of, okay, well, I know if I choose this, then the AI will choose this one, or, something else along those lines. Which I don't know, it has like another little like thinky part. Still super light, but
yeah, super light, but it does emulate that feeling of like you're not outguessing your component, but you are you're playing your board, but you're playing theirs as much as you're playing your own, really.
Right.
And trying to control what they get. And that makes for some more interesting decisions. And the fact that it wasn't just handled with randomness, to me, is fantastic. You pick a tile, and then you'll know which one your opponent's going to pick next, your AI opponent. And then, you pick another. And when it's time to look at the next set of tiles, after you've claimed that second tile that comes out, then you take the one you claimed the first time around and put it in your kingdom. And all you have to do is you need to match up at least one side of the domino needs to match up with another matching terrain type. That's it. But how you choose to do that becomes a pretty interesting puzzle when you're trying to build out these larger sections of land with crowns on them so you can get more points, but also trying to keep in mind that you're working within the constraints of a 5x5 grid. And if you don't plan out your grid properly, you'll end the game not actually being able to fit all the dominoes you could in that 5x5 grid. I've never actually completed the grid before, which is a testament to how bad I am at games. But also, I've seen it before where somebody hasn't finished with 2 different dominoes. So you just need to be careful planning if you want to get the most possible points. So there is that to think about there. Plus, you're trying to play what the other player is going to do. And I found that to be a satisfying puzzle.
Yeah, it was, I guess at the end of the game, when you try to maximize the points of the AI, was also like, I don't know, it's like a nice little like puzzle at the end. It's a simple one. Sometimes it's more straightforward than others, but yeah, I don't know, trying to maximize points in a 1x12 grid.
Yeah, the way the AI works is, I really like this about this variant. You're not actually building their own kingdom as they draft tiles. You're just taking the tiles they get and sort of setting them off to the side, and you deal with what they've scored at the end of the game. So upkeep from round to round is, this game is lightning quick.
Yes.
Which is really nice because it scratches a certain itch. It's not the sort of game you'll play all the time, but if you want something light and breezy, this works well because you don't have to do a lot of bookkeeping or anything like that. You focus on your own thing, and at the end of the game, you take the 12 tiles that they have collected.
Yes.
And you put them in a column. The variant rules give you instructions for how to set it up. Basically, you're setting it up so that if they were scoring one single column of terrain, they would earn the most possible points.
Right.
And it can rack up some points pretty quickly.
Yes.
Because it's always going for those crowns and it's always earning them in quite a bit.
Right.
And doesn't have to fit them into a 5x5 grid. So yeah, it is sort of like its own little puzzle at the end, which I've never seen before in a game.
Yeah, it's not a very complex puzzle, but it's like the rest of the game. It's light, and just one little other thing to do as a solo part of the game.
The only thing I would say about this that I'm not crazy about is that I found it was pretty easy to whip up on the AI player. I lost my first game to the AI, but it was pretty close. The second game, and then every game that I played there on out, I was able to win. So it does have a win condition technically, but I think you may want to go into this with the expectation that it's mostly going to be a beat your own score type of thing.
Yeah, I crushed every single time I played.
Yeah. There's a variant in the main rule book, actually a couple of variants. There's one where you're supposed to keep your castle in the center of your grid if you can.
Right.
And one where you get extra points for actually completing your 5x5 grid with every possible tile. It tells you not to play with those because it gives you too many points.
Right.
And you'll win too easily. So we definitely didn't want to do that because it was already losing pretty badly.
Yeah.
But the instructions say that there's a variant in the main rule book where you can, if you're playing with 2 players, you can play with a 7x7 grid. That's actually quite a bit more interesting. It doesn't sound like it would be a big deal, but they're a lot more, I don't want to say thinky like it's a real brain burner, but it does give you more complex decisions to make. And it said that they hadn't play tested that variant with the AI. I found that to be more challenging against the AI.
Yeah, and I never played that, but I'm definitely interested to try it out.
I think moving forward, this is probably the only way I would play it solo is against the 7x7 grid. And I would love to see Alexander or somebody else tweak this to increase the difficulty somehow. I'm not sure how much room there is for that, really.
Yeah, there's no obvious way to do that.
No, but it must be possible somehow. Maybe just giving them a lump sum of extra points at the end of the game or something, which isn't
it's just
satisfying.
just like a point handicap one way or the other.
Yeah, but
yeah,
I think the 7x7 thing was good. Our games were a lot closer, at least.
Yeah,
and the decisions were more interesting while I played, which is, with a lighter game like this, is probably really the point.
I can see also increasing the difficulty by just putting some constraints on yourself. Like, for instance, if you had to keep your castle in the middle of your 5x5 grid, or other things like that, you just don't get the extra points for it, though.
Yeah, I could see that. That would be nice. Yeah. Working under those constraints would be good. I would probably never win at that point. Yeah, I think you could do a few things like that probably to tweak it.
Yeah.
As far as replayability is concerned here, I think it's pretty high.
Yeah.
In the sense that I'm blanking on how many tiles there are in the game, but...
It's 24.
It's 24?
Or no.
It's 48 tiles.
It's 48 tiles.
Right.
24 for the single, or if you're playing a 5x5 grid.
So if you're playing the 5x5 grid, you're only using half of the tiles in any given game. And if you play the full 7x7, yes, you do use all the tiles, but of course the order that those come out is different every game, and that I think that's great.
Yes.
And it presents you with a different puzzle every game. I don't know. I feel like some of the reviews that I saw of this, it's obviously a very popular game, but when hobby game reviewers review Gateway games sometimes, I think they give them a hard time for not being what they're not trying to be in the first place.
Yeah.
And this game isn't trying to be something with, asymmetrical setup or all kinds of other things that complicate what's happening here. This is a very simple, pure game experience. And as long as you're okay with that and you're okay with just the randomness of the tiles and the order they come out being what drives the replayability, you'll have a good time.
Right. If you don't like simple games, you won't like this game.
You won't like this game. I did really like this game.
Yeah.
And I think that brings us actually to the end of the review where we're going to give our final thoughts, where we talk about what's good about the game, what's bad, and what's just ugly. And for me, this is a wonderful game. In recent years, I have gone from really liking very heavy, crunchy games to having much more appreciation for Gateway and sort of Gateway Plus type games. And that's why I picked this up originally. And I think it's very charming, it has great components. The rules are simple, even to play solo. It's highly replayable. And it scratches a certain kind of itch for me that I just find very satisfying.
Yeah, I would agree with all that. I found it very satisfying and enjoyable. And yeah, it's the right amount of lightness for, I guess, the time and everything. Yeah, it was really good.
As far as things that are bad about the game, I actually don't have anything that I would say about this.
Yeah, I wouldn't say anything. I wouldn't say there's anything bad about the game. The solo variant is worth playing, but it's nothing super compelling on its own, as a solo experience. But for $13,
yeah, for $13, it's a good solo experience that you will revisit.
Right. Yes.
I guess maybe one thing that I could put in the bad category here is that it's not quite difficult enough.
Yeah, that's what I'm mostly thinking of with the solo variant. It's just kind of, there's a way to try to beat your own score, which isn't super compelling for me personally.
Yeah, it's not really for me either. I might try playing it again, though, with the constraints you mentioned, and I'll definitely keep playing in the 7x7 grid. And for me, that's enough to keep me coming back. And really, I think enough for me to recommend it, even if it's not too difficult.
Yeah, I guess also I would say, as far as points, I'm okay with doing beat your own score if I have a sense of like what is a really good score and what is a bad score. When, like sometimes solo variants will have that listed, like, just like how good of a score it is, how hard it is to hit certain, like, I guess, thresholds.
Yeah. Like we talked about with Role Player. I really love it when they have those tiers of,
yes,
this many points is a good game or bad game. Yeah,
that helps me. Yeah. But I have no sense of how good that is. And I don't really know how well you could do that with this kind of game, with kind of how random it can be with the points. And
that's true. It'd be kind of nice to take a poll of the people who have played this and get a sense of what the average scores are, and then just create your own sort of tier, which shouldn't be that hard to do.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so.
But yeah, that's true. When you finish a game, you don't really have a sense of how good you've done. And anything ugly about this game for you?
I can't really think of anything.
No. This is the most inoffensive game I think I've ever played.
Yes.
I can't imagine anybody walking away from the table and hating it. There might be somebody like that out there, or there might be people who think that it doesn't have a real reason to exist. I've been told that this isn't much of a game, even. The decisions are too simple. I don't think that's really the case.
Yeah, it's too short and quick of a game to like really be complaining about your decisions don't matter or something like that. I think there's decisions to make, and I think they're appropriate to the length. And it'd just be a good game to bust out for either yourself if you want something light, or if you're just playing with people who aren't really into games. I think you'll have a good time.
So that's where we end up with the game. I really like this, and I recommend it to you wholeheartedly. I would even say I recommend it to you as a solo experience, because it doesn't have that difficulty issue. I don't think I would say if you're only ever going to play this solo, you should definitely run out and get it. But I would say it's a good distraction if you like solo games and you don't mind beat your own score type variants.
Right. Just for the price and everything, I feel like it's a game that's worth playing solo, but it's also, even if you don't get to game with other people as much, I feel like the amount of, like, the breadth of appeal this could have with people, that, like, the chance of you getting to this table with even people who aren't typically interested in board games is pretty high.
That's true. And you do get a different sort of experience playing it with a human player. It's more enjoyable that way.
Yes.
But the solo variant is good enough that even if you played it 80% of the time, we'll say solo, I think it's still worth picking up. So this isn't going to get our stamp of approval, because we do reserve that for games that we really like or just love outright. But I do really like this game, and I do recommend you check it out and pick it up if you've got 13 extra bucks burning a hole in your pocket. You definitely won't be sorry that you did. And I think you can have some fun evenings, especially if you've had a long day and you don't have the energy to play Mansions of Madness or set up Gaia Project or something like that. This is a nice way to end the day. And as somebody who has a full-time job and a couple of toddlers in the house, I find myself revisiting this one more often than I thought I would. So that's all we've got for you this episode. If you haven't yet, follow us on Facebook and Instagram. You can find us on Instagram at Solosaurus Podcast. You can also send us an email at solosaurus@gmail.com if you want to rate us and review us on iTunes. If you have a chance, that will help us to be seen by more people and will allow us to do more here with the show. And until next time, I'm Brandon Waite.
I'm Carter Mackey.
And this is Solosaurus.